You guys can hear me okay? Awesome. It's nice to meet everyone. Thank you for coming out this morning. I'm really glad to be here. I didn't realize it was the last one of the year. So I feel honored, very excited to talk about one of my favorite places in the world and where I work, which is the Genesee County Park and Forest in East Bethany. How many of you have been there before? Oh, yeah. Okay, I think that's 100%. That's amazing. Awesome. So you're going to know what I'm talking about today. I'm new to Genesee County. I started working at the county park about 2 years ago, and I love to hear other people's stories about the county park. I have some stories to share with you, but I hope today you feel comfortable enough to raise your hand, shout out whether it's a story or a fact or something that you know about the county park, because there is such a deep and interesting history. We can all learn from each other about this really special place that we have here in Genesee County. How many people have been to the Interpretive Nature Center before? Awesome. That's where I work. That's where I spend most of my day. I'm the Conservation Education Program Coordinator. So I tell kids when they come to the park, I have the best job in the world. My job is to help people have an awesome time when they're at the county park and introduce them to hopefully something new in nature and help them feel connected to the natural world. So we're going to have fun. We're going to have coffee, we're going to have donuts. Here we go. So the mission of the Parks Department, if you guys aren't familiar, we want to provide recreational and educational activities. We also want to work together with other partners across the county and across our region to bring people to the county park and to fulfill our mission. So we do a lot of different things at the county park. We have 2 county parks. The first one is the one we're going to be really focused on, the oldest county forest in New York State, which is the Genesee County Park and Forest. But we also have DeWitt Recreation Area here in Batavia. How many have been there? Another 100%. Okay, you guys are going to get an A for today. That's another wonderful place to visit. There's kayaking. There's a really nice trail that goes all the way around the water body. There's fishing, so I highly recommend a visit to DeWitt Rec area as well. Okay, I can't start this presentation without saying thank you to the folks who helped me develop this presentation and get all of the information I'm going to share with you. Shout out to the Holland Land Office Museum. How many of you have been there? Yes, Ryan was very helpful, and I'm grateful to the amazing Holland Land Office for not only having me today, but being a wealth of knowledge when it comes to historical information. Also, I had a wonderful time visiting the Genesee County History Department, which also has some great information, and that is open to the public, so you can make an appointment and go and do some research there if you have a topic that you're interested in. Okay, so we're going to go chronologically today when we learn about the Genesee County Park and Forest, and so I have to start with the beginning of our county. You've all been to the Genesee County Park and Forest, so hopefully you're familiar with where it's located in East Bethany. Way back in 1802 is when Genesee County was created. As you may know, it was not always the same size as what it is today. It was actually much bigger. It originally included Wyoming County. And you can see this red box shows where the county is today, and the outline of where it is today. And here is the Genesee County Park and Forest. So our history really starts with the Genesee County Poorhouse, the old county poorhouse, or the old county home, or Rolling Hills Asylum, as it's known today. I get a lot of questions, well, why is the county park way out at the edge of the county? It's right on the line between Wyoming and Genesee. But I like to show this map because, whoops, oh my. You can kind of see how it was in the center of the county originally. It was really central in our original layout as a county. Okay, there we go. So yes, center of the county, that's where the old county home was originally located, but right now it's right at the edge between Genesee and Wyoming. Okay, so the title of this presentation is talking about how we're the oldest county forest in our state. So we're going to, again, try to go chronologically and learn how we got there. Back in 1824, an act was passed statewide that basically established poorhouses in each of the counties in New York State. You might be familiar, there's a lot of really interesting history in all of our counties as it relates to their poorhouses and the stories that came from that system. But in 1826 was when the Genesee County Board of Supervisors established our county's poorhouse, and it opened in 1827. 1828 was when our county poorhouse was established. Eventually, that poorhouse added a farm operation to help support the people who were living there, make a little bit of a profit, but also provide some food for the folks that were living there. And then in 1915 was when the county forest was established. We were eventually recognized as the first county forest, and then all the way into 1971 is when we really became a county park. So there's a long and kind of winding road to how we got there. If you go to the county park today, you'll see this sign that shows our claim to fame as the first county forest in New York. Okay, how many people have been to the Rolling Hills Asylum? Amazing. Okay, I would be very interested to hear your stories. I drive by it every day. You can visit. It is open to the public. They do a lot of ghost tours there, so perfect for October. This picture is a photo from an aerial photo. Many of the buildings that are shown in this photo don't exist anymore. But this building is a recent photo that I took this winter. Okay, so this is just the language from the Batavia Times, sort of announcing the building of the old county home. And you can see that the reasoning behind it was really to get folks that couldn't afford to live on their own and give them a place to live. So they use this word paupers, removal of paupers to the county poorhouse, send them with their clothing, beds, bedding, and other such articles that will be necessary and useful to them. So that's where they went to live. Here at the old county home. Okay, so very, very interesting information exists about what it was like living in the county home back in the 1800s and into the 1900s. We have a display at our nature center that you can come and you can read these rules and regulations for the folks that were living at the home. There is a lot of language in here that I wouldn't use today, but was used for describing the folks that live in the county home. So these were the type of people who would be sent to live there. And you can see it's people who are not just people who maybe have a mental illness or a physical illness, but sometimes it's people who just could not afford to live on their own. And this was sort of a last resort or a place where they would be sent. There's a lot of talk about people suffering with acute insanity who did live at the county home for a time, but in 1887 those people were actually sent to Buffalo. So there was only really a short period of time where people with real mental health issues were housed at the county home. And then in 1974 the county home closes. Does anyone know someone who worked at the county home? Or did you yourself work there? Do you know someone? Okay, very interesting. I'd love to hear your stories someday.
My mother.
It was your mother?
My mother was the supervising nurse for the night shift.
Wow, okay, wow. Yeah, so it's so interesting to meet people because it really was not that long ago that the county home closed. One of my favorite or most interesting rules here in the rules list, they specifically ban annoyance of any inmate or inmates by another inmate. So you can't annoy anyone when you're at the county home, which I would appreciate very much. The county home also had what they called the county home keepers or supervisors. So there is a list that exists of the folks who are basically in charge of the county home. This last person on the list is, you can see the last name is Fleming. We're going to come back to him. We're going to talk about him. Okay, so when I was developing this presentation, the thing that really resonated with me the most, learning about the history of the county park, was the stories of the people. We can kind of laugh and joke about some of the silliness, like you can't annoy each other, but there were also a lot of really sad stories and harsh stories of people who lived at the county home. I highly recommend these two books, written by a historian named Linda Schmidt. The Poorhouse is the title, and there's really, really great historical information, news articles, letters, other things that she's collected. And so I'm going to tell you just a couple stories of the folks that lived at the county home, because that's what really resonated with me. So in Linda Schmidt's book, The Poorhouse Revisited, this is the first page, and it tells the story of a woman named Phoebe Jane White. And Phoebe was one of the first people to come to live at the county poorhouse when she was just 9 years old. And she was removed from her home, and she lived there for almost 58 years. And this article that you see in the bottom there is from Progressive Batavia. It was published in 1886, and it's basically her obituary. And the obituary describes her as idiotic, and also having some musical talent and could whistle or hum a tune after hearing it once or twice. But it also says her personal habits were filthy beyond all description, which made her a great care and burden. The last sentence really stuck with me in this obituary. It says, estimates her cost to the county during the 58 years of living there to be $7,000, and this amount could not begin to pay for the trouble she has made. Why such persons are permitted to be a burden for so many years while scores of beautiful lives come to an early end will not be solved in this life. How harsh. That's a really, really sad obituary to be published about someone who had a really full life living at the county home. And what I thought was really beautiful in Linda Schmidt's book is she actually dedicated the book to Phoebe and to this woman who was not appreciated in her time. So it says, it's my hope that those who read this will take something away from this book, not to feel pity, and while we can't undo the past if we don't learn from it, we are likely to repeat it. So we can't rewrite history, we can still feel empathy for those of the past by giving kindness and consideration to those around us today. This book is for Phoebe and for all of those who resided at the poorhouse that this book is written for and dedicated to. I just thought that was really beautiful, especially as I was thinking about the stories of the people who actually lived at the poorhouse. Some really interesting stories. So there was great data that was collected from the poorhouse. There were these annual reports from the poorhouse supervisors that were given to the state, really detailing everything that was done, from the amount of food that was used and firewood, to the number of people living there, their names, who died and when. So if you have an interest, there are some great records that you can look at. These are just a couple stories of folks who lived at the poorhouse, and again, this is from Linda Schmidt's book. There's two kind of contrasting stories in the top left-hand corner of two very different gentlemen. One, his name was George Wicks, who's a single man, 22 years old, and he's described as treacherous and dangerous. I was so curious, what does that mean and why? It says that he's always in a mechanical restraint, generally in a chair. If allowed his liberty, he attacks other patients and is liable to do them personal injury. That's all we really know about George Wicks. But by contrast, there's Jonathan Wood, who was 40 years old, a quiet, harmless man, takes care of the stock and milks the cows. He's never been at any state asylum. So I'm just so interested in these stories. In the top right-hand corner, there's a story, a sad story of Michael McGraw, who was 9 years old. I can't really understand what happened to him by reading this, but you might be able to picture it. It says he and his companions were teetering on a long pole, one end of which was on the ground and the other in the crotch of an apple tree near the county house. The springing of the pole worked it out of the tree, and it fell upon the boy, causing his death. I can't really picture that. But poor Michael McGraw, right? He was 9 years old. Why was he at the county home, you know? We do still see, when you're walking along the trails, we actually just pointed it out the other day to a group of fourth graders on a field trip. We do still have apple trees at the county home that are a sign of some of the farming history here at the county park. Yeah?
Was the county home the predecessor to the Genesee County Nursing Home?
Ooh, I do not know if those are one and the same. Does anyone, I've only heard of this as the county home and the county courthouse. You're nodding your head. Okay, so was it, this same facility went by the Genesee County Nursing Home? Okay.
Was it brick building now has been rebuilt, you know, it was wood before that.
Right, yeah, so the brick building is one of the newer buildings that still exists. Good question. My last story on this slide that I think is very interesting, a 15-year-old girl who's taken suddenly insane. She was taken to the county home after she basically ran away from her mother, was found at 2 in the morning, and she was very violent and in mortal dread of her mother. We don't know why, right? This is just the story of someone who was taken to the county home, and her name was Florence Humphrey. So again, very interesting stories. There's also some great letters that you can read, both about the people that lived in the county home and from and to the people that lived in the county home. So this is a woman who's writing to the keeper, the supervisor of the county home, asking about her mother. And not everyone whose family member was in the county home wanted them to be there. Sometimes there were extenuating circumstances. They couldn't have them live, you know, with their family, and there was a reason that they had to be at the county home. So this letter, something that, oops, yeah. Let's see if we can get it back.
As I said, it happened.
So I'm not the only one.
Oh.
Okay, that's good. That makes me feel better. That's good. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this one that I think is interesting, it says that we all want to see her and feel dreadfully to have her away from us, but so it is and has to be. So she's writing, asking about her mother, who's in the county. 1856 is this letter. These are going to be really hard to read, but I'll give you the gist of them. So these are 2 letters that, again, I found in that book from people who were living in the county home. The first one in the top left-hand corner is a woman who is writing to her family, and she's basically asking to get a likeness of someone named Mr. Maynard. So I don't know who that was to her or why she wants that likeness, which I'm assuming is like a drawing or a photograph. And she's also, you know, really asking to come home. She doesn't want to be there anymore. In this left-hand corner, it's another woman. She's writing to her daughter, and I'm taking to the pen to inform you that I have been in the poorhouse and have been for about a year. I came here with your stepfather. He had consumption and died here last spring. I was sick all last spring, but now I'm in comfortable health. I should like to go and live with you if you could take me on. Send for me or write to me whether you would receive me, and I will come there as soon as I hear from you. I feel in a hurry to get away from here. I remain your affectionate mother. Right, and that's how I felt reading some of these stories of the folks who lived in the county home, in their own words, asking to go home to their family, or the one in the top left-hand corner is kind of interesting, whether by handwriting when it was transcribed, or in some of the words the person actually used. It's very difficult to follow. So it's kind of interesting to see, like in what state were these people when they did write these letters. Unfortunately, as with many of the poorhouses across the New York State, there was a history of mistreatment when folks were at the county home. Here's some descriptions of what that was like. So I read something from the State Assembly Committee that was investigating the abuses at county poorhouses in 1838. And they described a terrible degree of overcrowding, one room, 18 feet by 17, held 5 beds occupied by 12 women and children. That's not a lot of room. It's quite overcrowded. Another of the same size had 6 beds occupied by 15 women and children. And then another one of a similar size had 19 people in one room. So overcrowding, of course, was part of the issue with folks living at the county home. And then here's the second article from sometime after 1871, and it describes comfortable accommodations for the actual poorhouse, but then it describes the insane asylum building, which is dilapidated, uncomfortable, insufficient, and a discredit to the county. Ooh, it's not good. I would not like to hear that about any county building today. 20 years ago, it was regarded as superior structure, but it's become wrapped and settling with age. The windows are loose, and its capacity too is altogether inadequate for the number of inmates already there. So again, overcrowding was one of the biggest issues I think that they faced at the county home. Again, you can visit the county courthouse today, Rolling Hills Asylum. What's that?
I was just wondering if I thought it was all closed, we could come in.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think they do tours, so you can go up on their website and they have tours that you can sign up for, especially this month. This is a great month to go on a tour, and they have a lot of great historical information as well, and can tell you a little bit more about these stories that we were talking about together, of the people who lived there and worked there, all the way through the history of the county courthouse. At the Genesee County Park and Forest, we do have a memorial to the folks that lived and died at the county courthouse. So I highly recommend, this is a great little hike. This is actually along one of our trails at the county park. So you do have to walk for about 20 minutes to get here, but it is tucked away in the woods. These stones were actually found at the county courthouse. We don't exactly know why they were not used, but they were put here at the county park and forest with this rock in front of the site, dedicated to the memory of those who died at the county courthouse.
Oh, they're not actually just buried there, just a memorial.
Correct, yes. So they're not actually buried there, it's a memorial, but a lot of people do visit it, and it is very interesting to read the stones and learn a little bit about what they say.
I was at that same day when they dedicated it.
Okay.
It was really different, different kind of feel of stuff.
So there's nobody buried there?
Correct.
It is a memorial.
Yep. Yep, it's a memorial, so the stones were not there, since the poorhouse. They were placed there in 2003 when it was dedicated. And to my understanding that these were found at the actual building of Rolling Hills and then dedicated for this purpose.
Yeah.
Like inside the building. Okay, so it's a little bit about the county poorhouse. Like I mentioned at the beginning, and I think you heard a little bit in Phoebe's story, at the time there was this sense that, man, a lot of money goes to pay for these folks who are living there. It's a bit of a burden, in their language, on the rest of the people in the county. We're paying for these people to live at the poorhouse. And so something that was done to help offset the cost was the development of the county farm. So the farm was established to provide food and also make a little bit of a profit to help support the other costs.
It's also part of the therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And we read in the one story of the gentleman who helped milk the cows, right? And so people were, you can also see in the rules of the poorhouse that they were actually required to work when asked by the supervisor. So people were working on the farm to sort of maintain it. So this is where some of the land that we have currently at the Genesee County Park and Forest starts to be sort of incorporated into the poorhouse. So 14 acres of land were purchased for the farm, right? Cleared forested land. And then in 1915 was when, remember the name Fleming, George Fleming, one of the county home supervisors, actually purchased land to establish a forest. And the intention behind that was to get firewood, really, to use at the county home. But he is That 1915 date is really the date that we consider the establishment of the county forest. And then the farm itself was closed on July 20th in 1945. You can see a list of crops that were grown at the county home on the farm. Things like peas and onions and things we still grow today in Genesee County. So again, this is Mr. George Fleming. He was the supervisor for many years at the county park, and he planted those first trees, 31,000 trees, within next to the county home in what would become the Genesee County Park and Forest. And believe it or not, those trees cost $225. 31,000 trees would cost a little bit more today, for sure.
That price is very high.
Yeah. Right, I'm sure in that time it was, absolutely. So he was superintendent for about 30 years, and he's really credited for the reforestation of the county home, and the county forest, rather. Well, for that time, it was a lot of farm fields that were then bought and incorporated into the land that the county owns today. And in 2023, there is a pavilion that was built at the park. So you can go visit there, you can rent this pavilion. We call it Fleming Pavilion, and it was dedicated to George Fleming. The cool thing about this pavilion is it was built by Camp Hard Hat. Is anyone familiar with Camp Hard Hat?
Yeah.
A little bit. Very cool program. It works with the Business Education Alliance in the Genesee County region, and they work with students in grades, I think it's 7 through 10, and those students are the ones that actually built this pavilion. They use power tools that I don't know how to use, and they're very, very talented. They work with some awesome BOCES instructors, and so those kiddos that you see in the hard hats built this pavilion in 1 week. And they build something new every year at the county park.
Where is the building?
So this is right along Memory Lane. I would say if you are at the main entrance to the park by the Veterans Memorial, you go up the hill a little bit, maybe 15, 20-minute walk, and it's right up there. Yeah. So planting trees and forest management is another big part of our history at Genesee County Park and Forest. It's in our name. We have estimated, by crunching some numbers and some math, that about 3 million trees have been planted at the county park since 1915. You know, there's all these numbers on here about students, community leaders. We had just had SUNY Brockport plant about 200 trees just this summer. So we're continually trying to plant trees, replace trees, and manage the forest in a sustainable way at the county park and forest. This is a very kind of interesting old map if you're familiar with the county park. So I'm going to just use my mouse here because I don't want to make the technology angry. But if you see, here's the main entrance to the park, right? And here's that main road. Here's where the Veterans Memorial is today. And you can see where some of these trees have been planted. There's a lot of lines and different markings of where the trees were intended to be planted. Here's Black Creek, right? And here's where the park office was originally. So today, when you enter the park, the Nature Center is right here. It is not on this map. This is a pre-Nature Center map. And one of my favorite things is that you can really see this history of forest management and being good stewards for the forest in aerial photographs. So on the left-hand side, we have 1939. I'm going to just point to where the old county home is, Rolling Hills. So here is that intersection. Here is the main entrance to the park with the Veterans Memorial. And then as you go along, you can see, especially in this corner, how trees have been planted and you can watch them grow over the years. Which I just think is so cool, and watch how the forest is expanding. When you visit the park, you'll notice there's a lot of trees in very straight rows. I always tell people, trees don't really grow in straight rows. Humans like straight lines. Nature doesn't really like straight lines. And so you can kind of see the history there. So 1970s was a really big push to plant trees at the county park and forest. We have some great photographs. Here's that hill. If you That top photograph, if you've been to the county park before, you're going past Rolling Hills down to the park entrance, that is that hill. So if you've been there before, I mean, I know I can picture it in my head. Where those folks are standing is now all quite tall trees. So it's amazing what about 50 years can do for a tree, give them some time to grow. And you can also take a look at this planting plan that exists. Here on the right-hand side is Raymond Road. And you can walk there today and see these tree species, right? So we've got a Norway spruce, we've got larch, red pine, Scotch pine, black locust. So it's kind of interesting to walk, and you'll be able to see the rows of trees as you go, exactly as they had planned to plant them. They certainly planted some species that we wouldn't recommend planting today, like autumn olive. But that's something that we're continually improving, how we are a good steward for the forest, how we manage things like invasive species. Autumn olive is unfortunately an invasive species, and how we improve the diversity of trees at the county park. So here's a picture. You can kind of get a sense of the straight lines of trees that I was talking about. Also, it's just a beautiful place for a hike on a winter day. I don't know about you guys, I'm kind of looking forward to snow, which I might regret saying. Here's another picture, beautiful old maples in this photo. We do have some areas of the park where you take a look at them, you see the straight lines, and they really were a plantation of planted trees. Other areas, you'll notice that it's becoming more diverse. Other trees were either planted or came in naturally, and that is really the stronger ecosystem. So that's what we've been working towards. What we've learned in the past 50 years in forest management is that having an area, acres of all the same species of tree is not great when it comes to stability, because you do get things like insects, invasive insects that might come in, and they like one species of tree. If that's the tree you got planted there, you're going to be left with no trees. I don't know how many people have ash trees in their yard, or had ash trees. Yeah. So there's an invasive insect called the emerald ash borer that came in and really took out almost every ash tree in western New York. So to me, that's a great example of why having many different species is so important, because your ecosystem's a little bit stronger and it can handle things like that. And again, this is just a nice picture of what the county park looks like, probably right now, but not for long. So I'd recommend coming and checking out the beautiful fall foliage. This is just along Memory Lane, which is the road that winds through the park. So
Like Fleming right here.
yeah, so this is actually right by the nature centers. I believe that might be G. Yeah, but that's what Fleming looks like, just on the other side of the park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the park wetland, it's
Oh.
right in the corner there is where the trail would be. Yeah.
Where that is now.
Another great thing about the county park, and another reason why we are so passionate about being good stewards for this land, is we're in the headwaters of Black Creek in East Bethany at the county park and forest. How many people have heard the word headwaters before? Ooh, good, okay, great. You guys that's an A-, I think, for that one. So you might be familiar then with watershed. A watershed is an area of land where when it rains, all the water drains to the same spot. So here is the Black Creek watershed in green. When it rains, all the water drains to Black Creek when it rains on that green area. Let's see if this will work. There we go. So that circle is where we are at the Genesee County Park and Forest. So we're really at the beginning of Black Creek. The water that comes from the county park flows up to Black Creek, onto the Genesee River, into Lake Ontario, and out eventually through the St. Lawrence to the ocean. So we like to take as good of care as we can to give the water a healthy start on its journey, very long journey, all the way up towards Rochester.
Arrow has gone in here.
Okay, wow.
And the water came down and it's all nothing there.
Okay, yeah. Very interesting finds. What these students are looking for in these pictures is Not anything archaeological, they're actually looking for insects. So those students are using nets to catch what we call macroinvertebrates, which is an insect that is big enough to see with your eye. And they live in the creek, they live in Black Creek. Scientists use these insects in the creek to make assumptions about how healthy the creek is. Some insects, things like mayflies, cannot live in polluted waters. So when we find a mayfly in Black Creek, we celebrate. We say, yay, that's great. Things like leeches and other insects you could find, but if that's all you're finding, it's a sign that the water probably isn't so healthy. So we do that quite often with students at the county park. It's a great lesson for them, but it's also great for us to get that information and learn a little bit about how healthy the creek is. Okay, so we talked about the county courthouse, we talked about the farm, the forest. Now we're kind of into our county park era. Again, 1971 was when the county park itself was really established. But it was first proposed in 1949, which I find interesting. It took them a while to get that done. But they hired a park foreman, whose name is Rick Branton, who's still around. I've gotten to meet him. He's very cool. And these are some photos of the county park, you know, in its day when it was first established as a park, and really opened up for recreation. Before that, it was really focused on the forestry, planting trees, and we started to get into the recreation aspect of what we do. There's a lot of great areas that you can visit within the county park that really were established with help from the community. So there's the rail trail, which is a really nice trail. There's some great bird feeders there. There's a chain link fence that goes around the whole trail. The intention was for folks with impairment in their eyes, maybe they're blind, they're able to use that trail and walk. But it's also great for anyone who'd like to visit. Again, more trees were being planted all the time, and these are really on that other section of the park. You guys can see here's the Veterans Memorial as well. So these are all great areas to visit within that spot. Okay, here's the story of Death Row Trail. Has anyone heard this story before?
Repeat.
Have you heard the story of Death Row Trail? Okay, so I tell this story to students often. I always start very spooky in honor of October. We talked at the beginning of this presentation about the memorial with the gravestones. So that is right here. So where my mouse is, you guys can probably see it. The Death Row Trail is highlighted in yellow. And here's the Interpretive Nature Center. So again, this is a great hike. I highly recommend walking along the Death Row Trail, checking out the memorial. The story I have heard, which again, when I normally tell this, I start really spooky. Ooh. And it used to be a poorhouse, and a lot of people have spooky stories around this. However, what I know is that actually the Death Row Trail is named because the park office used to be right next to that area, and the maintenance gentlemen who would work at the park, they would be cleaning things and fixing things, as they do, would often break equipment, and they would leave that equipment in a row along the trail. Call it, oh, that's Death Row Trail. That's our broken tractors and mowers and equipment that's broken. That's a story I've been told, and I'll just share a funny story with you guys. I was telling this story to a group of second graders, and we were standing right here along Death Row Trail, and telling the spooky story. I say the thing about equipment. A second grader runs off into the woods, and he comes out with a plunger. I don't know where he found it. It was in the woods. I said, oh my goodness. So to me, that's evidence that this story might have some weight to it, because I don't know how in the world a plunger would have gotten into the woods other than being left behind by maintenance staff of many years ago. So I thought that was quite funny. Okay, so again, I just hope that you leave this presentation with feeling like you can come visit the county park. There's a lot to learn. There's some really deep history there. Here's some photos. Again, I don't know why I'm thinking about snow so much today. Look at that snow. Light snow last year. We rent snowshoes at the Interpretive Center, so you can come on by and rent some snowshoes from us and try it out. Here's the Interpretive Nature Center. It was built in 1998. So again, here's what it looked like when it was first started. They really had to just pick an area right along Memory Lane on the other side of the park. This is one of the first photos we have of the original siding. Here's some people doing the groundbreaking with the shovels. And it really is a great place today. I love this map. Again, this is kind of an old retro map of the county park. So if you were to come to the Nature Center, I'd recommend coming at the entrance off the Bethany Center Road and coming down and visiting us right there. We are open year-round. We are free to the public, so anyone can come and visit us from Thursday through Sunday. We do a lot of different activities, from field trips with students to snowshoeing, like I mentioned, public programs. We just had a really fun composting demonstration at the Nature Center. So a whole bunch of different things. We have a book club, lots to get involved in. Conservation education has been a part of our history since the Interpretive Nature Center was built. Here's some old and kind of cool, if you're a nerd like me. I love environmental education. Here's our old program flyers and activities. You can see we were celebrating Earth Day. There's a winter bird feeding clinic that we had back in the 90s. I love the winter bird feeding clinic here in October 1998 because the gentleman who led that still volunteers with us at the park. And I thought that was really cool. We still work together with a lot of these different groups, especially the Soil and Water Conservation District, BOCES, and many others. I couldn't even name them all, who we work with at the Nature Center that help us to provide these programs and to connect with the community. Who has ever participated in the Envirothon or Conservation Field Days? Is anyone a part of that?
My kids did.
Your kids did, okay. When I talk to people, sometimes that's their favorite memory, is those programs here at the park. We really worked closely with the Soil and Water Conservation District and the Cornell Cooperative Extension for many years. They actually shared an educator position at the Nature Center. So one person was helping all three of those organizations, which must have been a very hard job. But in 2015, the county actually hired its first full-time educator at the Nature Center.
Oh, great.
And that's the position I'm in today.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be there. And today we reach over 4,000 people a year. Again, conservation education programs. We lead guided kayaking programs at DeWitt, summer camps, field trips, fishing, so much more. Camp Hard Path again. This is just some photos of the different wildlife that we see. We do a lot of wildlife monitoring programs as well. Again, kind of our history of stewardship at the park, planting trees, taking care of the wildlife that depends on those habitats. We track monarch butterflies every year. We do a fun program. So there's lots of fun things to get involved in. More pictures. We have a observation honeybee hive at the park. So in the top right-hand corner, you can see Charlie, one of our amazing volunteers, who is in with the bees. He's very brave.
Charlie Ogrum?
Yes.
I used to work with him.
Okay, so you know he likes bees. And he's not afraid of anything.
No.
And so he leads a great honeybee program. We also have bees in the Nature Center, but unlike this photo, they cannot get out. So they're very much contained, and you can come and you can look at them. A lot of people enjoy trying to find the queen bee or tasting the honey. We have the honey for sale at the Nature Center as well. My last thing that I wanted to make sure I mentioned today is our Friends group. So we have an awesome Friends group called the Acorns, which is the Association for Conservation of Recreational and Natural Spaces.
pictures.
It's a long name, but it's
I'm not
very
here,
cute.
but I'm one.
You're one of they.
No, I wasn't there, but I am one.
I'll Photoshop you in. This was our volunteer appreciation event last year, so there's probably 50 to 100 Acorns members now. Not everyone could make the event, but it's a really wonderful friends group, and we could not do what we do without them. For the longest time, there was only one educator at the park. Today we have two, which is wonderful, but we really rely on volunteers to help us do what we do. These are just some of the events that the Acorns run at the park. Pun intended, because they do a run for the Acorns every year that you can see in the bottom. We just had our 5K, 10K run for the Acorns at the beginning of this month, and it was wonderful. It was great to see people come out. It's the biggest fundraiser of the year. Every year they have a free concert at DeWitt Recreation Area called Music in the Park. It's normally the first weekend in August. Also, one thing I'll say about the Acorns as well is not only do they volunteer for the Genesee County Park, but they also are genuinely friends and like to spend time together. They do a lot of members outings where they go to different places, not just county parks. They go on different adventures, whether it's outside, hikes, kayaking, all sorts of different fun activities. And it's just about connecting with each other and building a community of nature lovers in Genesee County. So I highly recommend getting involved with them if that's something you're interested in. Here's us at lunch eating Mexican food in the left-hand corner. And there's Ruby. So in the center on the bottom there is Ruby and our amazing volunteer Sarah, who Ruby loves.
Sarah.
You know
I'll be
Sarah?
breakfast with her next week.
Oh, can you tell her she was in this presentation? She takes such great care of Ruby, who is our red-eared slider turtle. I always say Ruby's my coworker. She lives at the Nature Center, and she is a great ambassador.
I got her turtle earrings for her birthday.
That is perfect. Oh, that's so perfect. One thing I'll say that we just did this last year with the Acorns helped us raise money to purchase Ruby a new habitat, a new tank for the Nature Center. So if you were a part of that or you donated, thank you so much. We just ordered a custom glass tank for Ruby. So in the winter, Ruby will be having a housewarming party. And you guys will all be invited. I'm very excited. She's going to have her first swim. She's going to have more water and a larger area, and it's going to be a really great display. There's the Acorns again. Again, I can't say enough about them. I highly recommend getting involved if that's something you're interested in. We also, I'll mention, have an outdoor learning center right next to the Interpretive Nature Center. So that's something to check out and explore. It's something that Acorns built in 2014. And finally, special shout out, because I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about DeWitt Rec area. Again, that's actually in Batavia, so it's really walking distance from here. It is an old gravel quarry. So it's very interesting to visit there, see all of the wildlife that's there today, and basically wildlife coming back after many, many years being used as a quarry.
The eagles, you'll see eagles, fish are on there
Yes.
every once in a while, which is just amazing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I saw a bald eagle there the other day.
Yes.
I also see osprey often, and people love to fish. We lead kayaking lessons there as well. There's also kayaks to rent anytime. There's a little kiosk, so you can go and rent kayaks. Probably not today. It's a little too cold. And again, here's just a beautiful photo of a sunset at DeWitt and some people kayaking. On the left-hand side, if you've ever wondered, what is that metal thing sticking out of the water at DeWitt Recreation Area? You normally can't see it. The water is quite low right now. You've probably heard we're in a bit of a drought. So the water is very, very low. You see this metal thing. It's actually an old concrete mixing drum.
That's what I thought.
And if you paddle up to it, the coolest thing, if you're in a kayak, you paddle up to it, every once in a while you'll notice turtles sitting on top of it, sunning themselves. Oh, super, super cool. So again, wildlife is returning to DeWitt Rec area. It's a beautiful spot, great place for a walk. Looking towards the future, I mentioned we actually hired our second educator at the county park. She's amazing, her name is Jen. And we also launched a brand new program this year called Junior Acorns. If you guys maybe know a young person who wants to be involved in some of the things we've discussed today, they like nature, if they want to be a good steward for their parks, please let them know. We'd love to have them. This Saturday, I'll mention, we're actually doing a really cool program at the Interpretive Center with our Junior Acorns and our friends at the Bethany Volunteer Fire Department. So the Junior Acorns are going to be taking a wilderness first aid class, and then we're going to hide them in the woods, and they're going to pretend to be injured, and the Bethany Fire Department is going to come and rescue them. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a great way to kind of both let them get some skills, but also raise awareness about the importance of staying safe when you're outside.
And coordination.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And so that's open to the public if you'd like to come watch the demonstration from 2 to 3. Weather dependent, we might have Mercy Flight come in and join us. So you guys would be welcome to join. And last thing, I'll mention an exciting project that's coming up next year if you'd like to get involved. We're going to be restoring a small section of Black Creek. There's some areas where we've had erosion over the years, and it could really use some help with more native species, a better shoreline. And we're actually going to be working with students to make that happen. So if you'd like to get involved in that, we'd love to have you as well, and there's going to be more info to come. Okay, thank you guys for joining me today. I enjoy talking about the county park and forest, and I'm so glad to see so many people are interested, and I just hope that you can take both the exciting things that are coming in the future, but also just our history of stewardship and taking care of this amazing place that we get to have in our county.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.